That was awesome. My friend Joe Marone, who I believe I will be seeing Sunday for the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
He went. Him and his dad are like big wrestling fans. Like his dad saw Bruno Sammartino in the Garden when he was a
Oh
kid.
wow, wow.
Yeah, Rich. He's told the story so many times that like he it was like the 70s, and they saw Bruno Sammartino, and he saw Bruno Sammartino lose the belt to the Iron. I don't know if he saw this one, but he has seen Bruno Sammartino in the Garden, and like multiple times throughout his life when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But the one when he lost the belt to, I believe, Nikolai Volkov, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was crying. He said, like, in the streets, grown men were crying
Well,
because everybody bought into it, and he was their hero. He was the Italian-American hero in New York in the 70s.
yeah, and that was the time where kayfabe, nobody knew
Was
that wrestling was fake at that time. It was as real as, what you saw was what was happening. There was no, it wasn't set up backstage. They weren't doing just like stunts. They didn't practice, before. That was a real match, and you just saw your hero lose the belt.
Yeah. Yeah, it is Ivan Koloff.
Okay, yeah.
50 years ago, January
Wow,
18th, 1971,
wow.
Ivan
And
Koloff
especially,
delivered a Russian leg drop to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion Bruno Sammartino in Madison Square Garden to get the 1-2-3, becoming only the third man to hold the WWF World Championship. But this is when like the average title reign lasted for several years, like at least
yeah,
5 years.
yeah.
So like Bruno Sammartino, I think he held the belt for 8 years was his record, which that will never happen again. We don't
No,
like just people don't have the attention span. Like now, holding the belts for 6 months means something.
yeah,
You know, it's just crazy to see how far the times have gone. Where like an average title reign is like 3 months now, where back
yeah.
then your average was about 5 years, and
It would be
like
nice to go back to that, or at least maybe not like 5 years, but like it'd
but
be nice
like
to see someone hold the
two,
belt for a year or two. Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
a year or two would be nice.
yeah.
I like, but like I think
It
Ivan
makes it
Koloff
strong.
ended up losing the belt after 3 years or 4 years because he got like so many death threats, and they were like, we can't like do this. Like this was when no, but this was crazy. If you went to certain countries, like people would, or certain cities at that, like people would bring weapons to try to attack the bad guy if they could, to try to attack
Yes,
the heel, like
yeah,
especially in the South American places, like Puerto Rico or Mexico. They would, like, people would get stabbed, like wrestlers would get
yes,
stabbed by the fans, and people would throw glass bottles in the ring. I mean, this was, they would throw garbage. This is like, and this is all over this part, but like in like certain states, like southern states or like midwestern states, and like the South American countries, they would bring legitimate weapons
hmm
to like try to like get their revenge for their heroes. It's just nuts.
yeah. Well, again, that was like kayfabe was real. People thought it was real. There was very few people in that time that were privy to the fact that wrestling was. I don't like to say fake because it is
No, it's a
a stunt show.
physical. It's
It is
very.
a
It's a
physical stunt show. People do get really hurt,
yeah.
but I guess not fake, but set up, or predetermined. Maybe is
Yeah.
the best way to say it.
Yeah, I would
Um,
say that. It gives a business dignity.
yeah. Um, Nobody knew. There was very few people that were privy to that information, and so, and they kept kayfabe in and outside the ring. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, you did not If you were a face, you were not seen with a heel outside
No.
of, like, in a bar anywhere, even if that guy was your best friend.
They didn't even have the same locker rooms.
No. And if you were spotted, and you were punished harshly by management if you broke kayfabe. You know, it was not a joke. So people thought it was real, and they would attack you know, especially heels. They hated heels, you know.
Well, that means they were doing their job.
It means something completely different than it did back then. You know, heel heat now is like people are pissed off at you on Twitter, but like they know you're putting on an act, you know. Back then, you would, like you said, get death threats, you know.
I believe Jim Cornette has framed certain death threats.
Yeah.
I've heard him talk on his podcast a couple of times. He's had certain death threats framed.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
No, I would too. It's a badge of honor. It means you were doing your job.
Now, and I'm sure there's marks today that still think it's, you know, that the heels are actually assholes in real life, you know. I think, you know, MJF does a really good job of
he does
on and off screen. Like he's a heel all the time. He's a heel on Twitter. He's a heel when he meets fans, like on the street. So he does a great job. And there's not too many people that are. I think because now wrestling is so intertwined with like charity events. You know, they do Make-A-Wish all the time. It's really hard for wrestlers to stay heels.
Well, yeah,
outside of the ring.
I mean, the business just
working with kids.
Yeah, well, the business got too corporate. Like that's kind of what happened. Is that it just became too corporate, too overproduced, too much of, you know, just. It entered a territory where it was not supposed to ever be, and it just kind of went the way that all big business does. So there's a handful of reasons you can point to as to why WWE is not what it used to be, and the main reason was becoming a publicly traded company. That's essentially what led to the beginning of what this is.
Well, you know, yeah.
I mean, they've been a publicly traded company since like 2002, I think. So they still got away with like a bunch of stuff, but like now that, you know, we're in a more focused world where people are paying more attention to that stuff, now it's, you know, now they have to do certain things, and it's a bunch of hooey because the wrestling business should not have, like, it's doing things that type of business should never have to do. Mm-hmm. Or at least not with its performers. But, you know, that's just the nature of big business. What are you going to do? America. So what I was saying was my buddy Joe Marone, and his dad, lifelong wrestling fan, saw Bruno Sammartino. People cried. He probably cried.
Yeah.
He went to WrestleMania 20, and he still has the chair, actually.
That's amazing.
Because, like, they would get in... Because, like, when you sit in the front row for these wrestling pay-per-views, they have a special chair, like, commemorating the event with, like, the graphics and everything. So he kept the folding chair. And he has a few. So if we ever do a wrestling pay-per-view at his house, we tend to see or sit on the chairs. Certain chairs. Some chairs he won't take out anymore. That's one of them. I think that chair he'll only do it on WrestleMania if he's sitting in it, which appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't have a chair. I've never sat that close.
I've never either. When I went to SummerSlam, I was pretty close, but we were still in like the stadium seating. We weren't on the floor with the chairs, but I was like pretty much level with the ring where our seats were. So I had a great view.
Oh, that's cool.
But I didn't get a chair, which it's fine. It was still a great night. It was a really good SummerSlam. I think it was SummerSlam 2007 because I had just gotten my driver's license.
Okay.
So it was a good show. It was fun.
I don't think I was watching at that point. I think I had stopped watching I think the first time that I stopped watching was about 2006 maybe.
I think 2008, 2007, 2008 is when I really stopped watching.
Yeah, around then. I think I had started it again I think I had like I was still watching casually. Like I was still watching like the big pay-per-views if my friends were like hosting and we just like went to go hang out. Like that I did for years. But I wasn't watching like religiously after like 2006. Maybe like somewhere around like shortly after Eddie Guerrero passed, I like started like I stopped watching. So I would say like 2000 and I would say well he died in 2005. So I would say I stuck around until probably around 2006 and then I just started trailing off.
I think I stopped really watching religiously around the time that Chris Benoit passed, and then I think WrestleMania 24, which was in 2008, might have been the last WrestleMania that I watched. I bought and I watched.
Yeah, well, we watched those for sure. I mean, I watched just about every WrestleMania since I was like 15, 16.
Yeah.
Maybe, actually, no. Probably younger than that. Probably like 13 or 12. Yeah, now I'm trying to pinpoint the exact time. But anyway, I had watched... I had stopped watching religiously around then. So there was just a lot of things that just happened in between that I didn't know. Like even the PG transition. One day I was like, "Why is it PG?" Like I think it had been PG for like a year or two at that point, and I had not noticed because I was only watching very casually. And I think one day I saw it and I was like, "What the hell is this crap? Why is this PG?" Like